Hi, Roger. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Okay.
Hello, Steve.
Skip, how you doing?
Doing great.
Are you busy with the Steamship Authority?
I am hopefully going to turn the building over June 16th.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
That's a
That's
lot. It's been a long struggle.
Yes, it has.
Anyway, what before I start, I'm recording the meeting, and so because Eric can't be here, and we'll have a record of it. So the recording is started. The other thing that I'm going to do on the agenda is switch two items around. Um, I'm going to change the order so that we'll do the issuance of a press release line item before we do an update on the status of the three ISPs uh, uh, situation in terms of where they are in Falmouth. So I'm going to call a meeting to order. And the first order of business is that we have two memorandums of understanding that have been signed by Gateway and by Ripple Fiber. So what we need to do is approve the memorandum of each one so that we can execute it. And the chair of this board will execute, assuming approval, will execute this on behalf of the board. So so the first one is Gateway Fiber. I sent these off to you yet this afternoon. Does anybody have any questions about them before we vote on them or any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Gateway Fiber.
I move that Beckerly moves to approve
I second.
Gateway.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mike and a second by Roger to approve the memorandum of understanding with Gateway Fiber. So I have to call the roll. I have to vote by roll call, which means I'll call your name on, and then you give your last name and how you vote, since we can't see you. Okay, so I'll start. Roger.
Roger McDonald, aye.
Okay, Mike.
Beckerly, aye.
And Skip.
Bandini, aye.
And Bird, aye. So the motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with Gateway Fiber has been approved unanimously. Okay, I'd like a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding with Ripple Fiber.
I moved that we accept the memorandum of understanding from Ripple Fiber.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second it.
McDonald seconds.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with Ripple Fiber. I'll call the roll. Roger.
McDonald, aye.
Okay, Mike.
Beckerly, aye.
And Skip.
Bandini, aye.
And Bird, aye. So the motion's carried unanimously. So I will sign these on behalf, or whoever wins the elections, I will sign these on behalf of the board, and they are in effect. Okay, moving along. Question of public input. And I see Steve Tom is here. Steve, do you have anything you want to, 2 cents you want to contribute to this? I mean,
No, I'm just listening in because I've been out of touch with your work for quite a while, so I wanted to see what was going on.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, hopefully you'll learn something tonight. All right. Thanks, Tom. Okay. So we'll go on to the next order of business, which is approve the minutes of the May 7 meeting and the executive sessions for February. So we'll start with the minutes of May 7. Do we have anybody who wants to move to approve the minutes of May 7?
Yes, Mike Beckerly, I have moved that we approve the minutes of
Of May 7, okay. Do we have a second? Need
I'll
somebody to
second it.
second. Either Roger or Skip.
I'll be glad to second it unless Roger wants to.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 7. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Roger.
McDonald, aye.
Okay, and Mike
Beckerly, aye.
and Skip
Bandini, aye.
and Bird, aye. So the minutes of May 7 have been approved. All right, how many executive sessions in February are there, Roger? I don't have the minutes. in front of
There
me.
are two. February 7th and
10th
14th, I
and
guess. Let me look.
February 7 and what?
I'm sorry, February 10 and February 17,
Okay,
which I
February
sent
10.
around again today.
So the first, we need a motion to accept the minutes of the executive session from what? February what?
First, February 10.
February 10. We have a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes for the executive session on February 10.
And we have a second. Skip, you want to second it?
Yeah, I'll second it. Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the executive session on February 10? Am I got it?
Yes.
Okay, call the roll. Roger
McDonald, aye.
and Mike
Beckerly, aye.
and Skip
Bandini, aye.
and Bird is aye. Okay, next we have the minutes from the executive session of what, the 14th?
February
14.
17.
February 17th. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes
I have
from
a
the
motion.
executive session?
I make a motion that we
Yeah.
approve the minutes of February 17th. Executive
Okay, we
session.
have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The record shows that Mike made the motion and Skip seconded. And I'll call the roll. Roger
McDonald, aye.
and Mike
Beckerly, aye.
and Skip
Bandini, aye.
and Bird, aye. So the minutes of the 17th have been carried. Okay, next up on the agenda is the election of officers for the upcoming year. We don't have any formal bylaws, and so we're going by practice, and the practice has been that at the first meeting following the town elections, we elect or re-elect members of the board as the board so chooses. So, and my understanding from having talked to Roger and Mike, they are both interested in staying on in those positions. And if you'll have me, I'll stay on as chair. And unless somebody else, are you interested, Skip, in becoming chair?
I am not. I think you guys are doing such an outstanding job. We couldn't pick three better people.
Okay, well, thank you. Do you want to make a motion that the current slate of officers get reelected for the coming year?
Yes, I will make a motion that the three present officers be reassigned or reelected to their office for the upcoming year.
Okay, we need a second. Roger, you can second it.
McDonald, second.
Okay. Does anybody are there any comments, any revelations that need to come out or anything like that? If not, I'll call a vote for the slate of the three officers to continue for another year. Roger?
McDonald, aye.
Okay, Mike? Mike? Beckerly? You're frozen. Skip?
Bandini, aye.
Mike, are you still there? It looks like your internet locked up. And well, I'll cast bird eye, and so that's 3 out of 4. The officers have been elected. Okay, moving on to the next order of business. The next order of business, and I'm going to switch this around, is doing a press release on our activities over the last 6 or 8 months. And what prompted this was that I have a close friend who has a home in Falmouth, but he's currently dating and has been for quite a while, the Swedish ambassador to the United Nations. And so he spends most of his time in New York or in Sweden. So anyway, he sent me a note because he gets the Enterprise, and he said, "Courtney, congratulations on being reelected to the Municipal Light Board." And his next sentence was, "What does the Municipal Light Board do?" And that got me thinking that we should in fact get some kind of press release out as to what we've been doing, the current status of the ISPs applications, when people can anticipate that fiber optic is going to come down the road to Falmouth and so forth. So I don't know, any comments on this?
I would
Roger,
say
looks like
we should do that. We also, the last time, and Mike published out on our website the new mission statement.
Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile to refer to that in the press release.
Yeah, I think
that was part of my when I brought up this notion of a press release. One of the reasons was that a lot of people, it took us a long time to realize. It wasn't until early last year that we realized, oh, we are not even in the business of selecting an ISP, right? And this is complete news to everyone in the town. Nobody has any idea that this sort of rampant capitalism of multiple ISPs building in town is what's going to happen, right? So we need to explain that, and that this is other people's money, and that's why we're letting it happen this way, right? So
yeah. No, I think it's really important that we have a mission, and I think we've been so preoccupied in the last couple of years just trying to decide, number one, where we as an organization we're going to go and what our authority was and so forth. And there's been, opinions by town council that say we're an elected body, and so it's our job to negotiate memorandums of understanding and to take the lead on this. But, we rarely have anybody from the press that sits in our meetings. And so I think we're at a point in time where we need to get something out. And to that end, I had spoken to representatives from Ripple and from Gateway, and I told them that we're interested in putting out a press release, and could they get us a blurb, a self-promoting blurb by this meeting. Unfortunately, I haven't seen anything, but I can take it on my shoulders to hector them to death to get to get me something in the near future. So I think.
Yeah, Steve just provided one literally during this meeting, or 15 minutes ago or something like that. And given that it's going to be part of a press release, I'm not going to read it into the record of this meeting. So, but it's a good statement. So.
Yeah. Well, so what I'm proposing is that we find somebody who's interested in and has some time to draft up the elements of press release, and then we can maybe review it. I'll try to I'll get after the two ISPs to get me something in the next day or two. And we can go from there. Roger, would you be willing to take this on, or have you got a full plate right now?
Well, I do, but I mean, this shouldn't take long. I'm just thinking that, um, one element of it is what have we been doing over the last 2 years, and basically, discussions with prospective vendors. Um, we have made a decision to invite, or they have made a decision, but we have an MOU, and two ISPs have been invited to participate, and we expect that they will begin to build out by the autumn.
Right. And we'll after
we
we
can
get
work
through this,
that through.
yeah, after we get through this, we'll get a real update on where things stands with the nuts and bolts of this, which can become integrated into what you draft. If you're willing to at least put it together, that would be great. Does that
Okay.
sound like something you can do, or
I think so. I'll
my-
reach out to Mike and Skip to get input as well.
yeah.
And yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is
And
something
Eric
we
as
have to
well.
get up tomorrow, but I would like to see something in the paper by maybe next week, the end of next week. And I believe the deadline for submissions to the enterprise is Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
But if it's not next week, it's the week after that,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal particularly. In fact, I would want to make a couple points about that, which is we might want to actually wait until the DPW or the Conservation Commission, at least some agency within the town government, has issued a permit. Right. It's something to consider. These guys are applying for permits. Those permits are in the works, but they no one's gotten a permit yet. So,
and you're right, Mike. But I think you're right. I think that the timing is important, and I think it would be of more benefit to everybody, including the ISPs. And I think part of in others, I see doing this press release has a dual role. One is the primary role is to inform the public in Falmouth that these guys are coming and they're going to be starting to string fiber, and there's going to be broadband competition with Comcast.
right.
And Comcast, in fact, I believe recognizes this, and they've suddenly started advertising $50 gigabit end fee and 2 gigabits for 120.
Yeah, they've changed, but I'm not sure that belongs in our press release. But it is interesting that they have started responding to the competition for sure.
Yeah, no, I don't think it necessarily. I don't think it does. I mean, I think the purpose of the press release is to promote these two guys running fiber optic, and I certainly I think anything that we write has got to reference Comcast, and maybe it's appropriate to say that just the fact that there is a potential competition for Comcast has inspired them to upgrade their service more recently, and I think that's true.
Yeah, although if you do that, then I think we have to invite them to make a comment in the press release, just like the other guys. So
Right.
I would feel, and maybe we should. I don't know. We've not been working with Comcast, so I'd rather, in some sense, I mean, our mission statement specifically points out that what we're trying to do is have more competition among ISPs, right?
Yeah.
That's what
sort
I
of
think we should relate.
That's implicitly talking about Comcast, right? They're the primary.
Yeah.
So
No, I think your point's well taken, Mike. I just was making note that I think it's interesting that they are clearly responding to the fact that they're sensing that there's going to be they're going to have competition here in Falmouth, and therefore they've got to be more competitive. Whether or not that gets into a press release or not is something,
it's different.
We can decide once we get ready.
One other comment I wanted to make about the press release, which is only indirectly about the press release, but Courtney, you had also mentioned that we have a new select board member now who just got elected.
Yes,
Liz Klein, and
Yep.
and so we should put something together to catch her up on what we're doing, so that she's not, so she can feel informed. And
well, not to sound like I'm one step ahead of you, but we're thinking along the same line. I have invited her to come to this, to sit in on this meeting that we're having right now, and she said she wouldn't be able to get in until after 6 o'clock, and which is one of the reasons why I switched the agenda around and deal with publicity and save the update till later. The other part of that is I have a meeting with her over coffee on the 11th of June at the Coffee O to go over this stuff. And, certainly if you want to sit in on that, it'd be great. But basically, I was just going to catch her up.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So, and I also, by the way, invited Doug Brown to come to this meeting tonight, simply because we were doing an update on all of this. So, I think you're right. To get back to the press release and the timing of it, I think you're right. It would be almost better to wait until it's a little clearer when the permits are going to be issued, so that we can then go to the ISPs and say, when are you've got your permits, when are you going to start building? And
I also don't want to piss off anybody, like the DPW folks. I don't want them to feel like our press release is adding yet more pressure on them to approve permits before they're ready or whatever,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, but I guess my point is, in a way, this gives us time to draft a document that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we can't get started drafting it. And then when we feel the timing is right, that's when we can release it. Because the reality of the information may not be significantly different. We won't have to change what we write, I don't think. So anyway, is this something you feel like you want to take on, Roger? At least to get it started?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
I'll contribute.
Yeah. And as I say, I'm gonna try to get some input from the two ISPs that are actively applying. GoNetSpeed, by the way, is pretty much on hold, and we'll get into that when we update things. But it really comes down to these two, and Gateway and Ripple. So that's where we are. Is there anything more on the press release? If we've covered that subject, then we can move on to an update, and hopefully Liz Klein will join us after 6. Anything else on the press release that we want to discuss at this point? I mean, I guess one question that comes to mind is, how far back in the way of background should we go? In other words, should we give some history in this thing or make it very current? In other words, I mean, do people care about the history?
I don't think we should. I don't think, I
Yeah.
think the fact that our mission changed and the reason our mission changed is because everybody has already heard now in the town about all the capital budget problems that the town has, right? And so it's well motivated for us to say, we set aside the idea of raising a bunch of millions of dollars in capital, and this other thing has come up, which is private entities want to build this. So,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any point in going back to anything before that. For example, I don't think there's any reason to mention Boundless or whatever that other, New England Broadband or whatever. None of that stuff matters at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Plus, Skip and I don't have any idea what they are.
All right. So anything more on that? So if
No,
not,
I'll just say also that the action is I'm going to consult with other members here and draft, and the release is TBD.
Right.
And by the way, just as an aside, since we've got a minute here before 6, Eric is down in Panama. That's why he couldn't make this meeting, but that's why I'm recording it, so he's got the benefit of seeing it. And Eric, by the way, endorsed the re-election of the officers as well. So, but he's not a proxy vote. Okay, so we can get started on the press release, that stuff, and let's move on to an update on the status of the 3 ISPs and what they're doing and so on. And what I will say, I'll start off by saying, originally there were 3 ISPs that exhibited an interest in building in Falmouth. And the first one, the 3 were Ripple Fiber, Gateway Fiber, and Go NetSpeed. And Go NetSpeed has been sort of nibbling around the perimeter for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And they, as a matter of fact, got a huge infusion of capital from T-Mobile to expand their fiber optic footprint. And so I asked Heidi McHoney, who's their government affairs liaison and we've been dealing with, whether this was going to impact their plans as far as Falmouth. And she said no. She said we've decided to put Falmouth on hold. It's not in our building plans for the next 12 months. So I think basically, to me, it's pretty clear they've decided to back out. I can't honestly see them coming back in a year from now when presumably the other 2 guys will be well on their way toward building out a fiber network. And they would be like the third wheel. So
I would say that I mean, my understanding is Go NetSpeed is a much bigger ISP than either Gateway or Ripple, and already. And now that there's this oddly structured acquisition going on by T-Mobile Fiber, they're getting even bigger. And so, I think the fact that they still have, we may not be in their build plans for the next 12 months, but we don't know the future, and I wouldn't want to put all my eggs in 1 or even 2 baskets of the current ISPs, because hey, they could get acquired by AT&T and Verizon respectively, and everybody's totally distracted at that point.
Right? Yeah, no, that's true.
So we could very easily find ourselves 12 months from now with Go NetSpeed again being in the mix. You never know.
Well,
Yeah.
and or T-Mobile being in the mix, aka
Yeah.
GoNetspeed.
Right.
Well, yeah, and you're right. So all
But
things change, but
I think you're correct, Courtney. Right now, their GoNetspeed's on hold, and so we really don't have any active work to do with them.
Right.
no, that's correct. That's what I'm getting at. They've made it pretty clear that for the next 12 months, Falmouth isn't in their bill plan. Now, yes,
Yeah.
that can change. But for the time being, I think that's the dynamic. Um, Mike, do you want to jump in here and kind of give an overview of where we are with those two ISPs, the other
Yes.
two?
Well, so Ripple. We start out with Ripple. Ripple has, they've explained to us they're kind of underground experts, right? They tend to want to do things underground, and they would only secondarily do stuff on the poles, kind of if they was a really good reason to do it that way. For the most part, they like to do things underground, and they are applying for permits. They're actually in the iteration process with our DPW, where they submitted a proposed plan, and the DPW has responded back to them, and they've updated it and submitted it back to the DPW, and the DPW has pushed it back to them again. They're in this iteration process, and that's not unexpected until the first plan gets through all the scrutiny at the DPW, and they get a plan that meets all the DPW criteria. Like they had some issue with getting, for example, the town wanted the dig plans to include where the gas lines were located, and so they had to go back to the gas company to get disclosure of where are the gas lines. And so that was one iteration. Another was the stormwater drains, etc. So I'm not sure this won't go back and forth a few more times, but they're in the process of working through getting a build permit. Now we're into the summer build moratorium now, but that really, from what we've been told by the DPW, is if the directional drilling that they're talking about for the build is mostly happening on the sides of the roads, then so long as they're not having to block main streets, some of the build can go forward even in the summer. At least that's what it seems like. So that's what I've got for status on Ripple. And Ripple's basically asking now to have a meeting with the DPW to rapidly converge on the last few issues. That's what they're hoping to do. One of the things that's become clear to me from this is the amount of work this involves for the DPW is a lot, right? In some sense, every street in Falmouth is going to need this level of detailed scrutiny the next few years, right? And that's a lot of work that for the DPW engineering team, which presumably was already busy. Right. So this is an ongoing concern of just how quickly will the DPW be able to issue these permits. Okay. Anything I need to I should add about Ripple, Courtney?
I don't think so, but whether you want to use that to segue into the meeting we had with the DPW and director and Mike Renshaw and
yeah, we did have Courtney and I had a meeting with Mike Renshaw, the town manager, and with Peter McConerty, who's the head of the DPW, and with the town council, and what's her name? Keefe or O'Keefe? Anyway, and that was to discuss. What was the purpose of that meeting, Courtney?
It was primarily to discuss the logistics and how we could smooth the thing, smooth the process out.
Yeah.
Because we're sort of feeling our way in this thing. Everybody is, because for the DPW, the scope of the applications for road permits is greater than anything they've had to deal with in the past.
Yeah, now I recall. Yeah, and and there's also the issue that the DPW is being put in the hot seat between these different ISPs, where in some sense they have to be fair to these different competing ISPs, but no one wants, a hodgepodge of fiber installs, all over the town, where any given street might be installed by any given vendor. There needs to be some coherence in the areas that are granted. And so that was one of the things we were talking about with specifically to make clear with Peter McConerty, and he was very receptive to this notion that they should be submitting plans for areas of town, but then describing the phases in which they would build them. So that was kind of what came out of that meeting.
I should sort of supplement that a little bit, Mike. Number one, the scale of the permit requests is bigger than the DPW normally deals with. And the other reality of this is that the ISPs applying to build and run a fiber optic broadband internet in Falmouth is not the same as the case with Comcast and cable. Comcast and cable has to get a franchise from the town to operate. So the town selects a cable operator. In this case, it's Comcast, signs a contract, which it gets renewed periodically. I think it's once a year. And essentially, then the town establishes some operational rules and off you go. We had sort of naively assumed when we were going down this road a year or so or more ago, that essentially we would end up doing the same thing. We'd have competing ISPs making proposals to us. And then we would, in our great wisdom, select one and work with that single ISP going forward. Well, we discovered from town council and reading the regulation, the FCC regulations, and the law, was that we could not exclude a single broadband provider. And so therefore, we were faced with a challenge of essentially a potential free-for-all. And so, this free-for-all has gone from 3 potential ISPs down to 2, which makes it a little bit more manageable. But you've still got 2 ISPs who are competing to build out fiber as much as they can, as fast as they can. And the question is, are they going to build in the same place? What are their plans? And so it puts the DPW kind of in the middle, puts us all in the middle to try to manage this in an orderly way.
The criteria legally, from things I've been reading, cannot be that we decided to cut up the turf in some fair way for these ISPs. You actually get sued if you do that, right? You actually have to, the criteria have to be based on real construction quality, reasonable criteria, right? That are real issues, and not market management and stuff like that, right? So I think this is not a role a DPW has had to play before, and that's another thing that
Right.
makes
And
this uncomfortable.
it's probably not, well, it's certainly not a role or a problem that the federal government figured out was going to happen.
Right.
But it may be that the ISPs are gaming this.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're sitting there. I think our role is to try to sort that out and kind of minimize the amount of gaming in the system. And
yeah, and the meeting that we had with the town manager and Peter McConerty and so forth, I was specifically made note of the fact that Peter McConerty got that point, Roger, which is like, oh, okay. So why doesn't he specifically said, I'm paraphrasing what I recall he said, but something along the lines of, why wouldn't this ISP just request a permit for this road, this road, this road, and this road, kind of, right? And right. i.e., as a way of grabbing a whole section of town, kind of, right?
Yeah, just to be.
So yeah, he understood the fact that this could be being gamed.
Right. One of the things that you should all bear in mind is that the game that gets played is that an ISP applies for an underground building permit in as big a possible area as they can. Well, if they get issued a permit under DPW policy, then the DPW won't issue a second permit to a different ISP for building in the same area. And so the potential game is the first guy in tries to lock up as much of the thing as a blocking game on the against the other guy. So it's right. It gets to be kind of a free-for-all challenge, but that's what makes it fun and I guess justifies our job.
Right. So let me go on to what I know about the status of Gateway. We've heard in prior meetings about the status of Gateway with respect to poll applications. So I won't reiterate any of that, but with respect to they have also had received information from the DPW. I don't know and have not seen an actual application or maps or diagrams or anything from Gateway to the DPW. That may be in preparation. I don't know, but we did see some concern was expressed by Gateway about some of the requirements the DPW was laying on them, and in particular about trying to get surveyed property boundaries and surveyed boundaries of the road right-of-ways, as opposed to just using the town GIS coordinates, initially. And so that was an issue that Peter McConerty spoke to in the meeting we had, where he said using the GIS coordinates for the purposes of the permitting seemed, he was he indicated that using those coordinates was going to be sufficient. And so that addresses one of the concerns that Gateway had raised. So I don't know when the DPW will actually receive a actual build application from Gateway. Gateway did tell us, and where they are planning to build the shelter. Is that what they called it, Courtney? The shelter? It's the large central hub building that
Yeah, it's, I mean, the hut. Is that
yeah,
what-
it's like a hut, or it's but larger than a small street cabinet thing. It's a big central thing, and they did tell us that they're negotiated to put that on the property of St. Barnabas Church as a spot where there's a sort of telecom corridor right next to their property that they own, and so so they have presumably are pursuing building permit for that and so forth too. So concrete progress on their part, certainly. That's what I've got for the status of these guys.
Yeah, and let me add a couple of things. The other part of what these folks are required to, the ISPs are required to do, is if the what they're proposing to do underground is falls within conservation jurisdiction, they need to go to conservation to get an approval to do whatever it is they're going to do. So what we, Mike and I, did was to set up a meeting with conservation with each one of the 3 ISPs. And out of those meetings, conservation agreed that they would, that the most likely permitting requirement would be the issuance of an RDA, a request for determination of applicability, which is a relatively, it's one level below in the permitting hierarchy and degree of difficulty, expense, and time. It's one step below a notice of intent. And it's a much simpler process to go through, and it takes about a month to submit the thing, have staff review it, and then have it voted on by the commission. It takes about a month altogether. And what conservation has done is, which is really helpful as far as these ISPs are concerned, is that they have set up a kind of one-size-fits-all order of conditions that they would issue along with the RDA. In other words, what requirements in terms of things like staking and hay bales and sediment protection and all that the ISP would have to follow in the process of doing their bills. And Gateway, in fact, has already, even though they haven't gotten their DPW permits in, requests in, they have already received approval from conservation for building where they're intending, which is both Ripple and Gateway, based on the information they provided, and are seeking to build roughly in the same area. That is, from the center of town out into out in East Falmouth in the Heights, and out along the south of this 28 Route 28. That all those different fingers of land. How far they're, that's their, both of them have, at least that's their emphasis, rather than starting by going down to Woods Hole or North Falmouth or the west side of the moraine. So we know that. Now, Ripple, I know, has not yet applied to conservation.
Right, so they're trying to get, I guess, their ducks in a row with the DPW, and then go to the Concom with a DPW level approved plan.
Right, which frankly is what we would prefer, conservation would prefer. And would be to do it that way. But because if the DPW does condition something and says, you can only build on this side of the street, not that side, and then Concom has more specific information to work with. But I think at this stage it's not a big deal. But so that's kind of where that stands now. What does that mean? Does it mean that Ripple Fiber is imminently about to start digging in the ground? And at this stage, they have to get at this stage they have to get conservation approval. They have not yet gone to them. I think they're waiting to get approval by the DPW.
Right.
The DPW is asking for some more information, and I think one of the most recent thing they were asking for was where the location that Ripple needed to locate on their plans where all the stormwater drains and so forth are on the roads that they're planning to work on. And so they're in the midst of doing that. Then they have requested that they meet with the DPW and make sure there aren't any other outstanding issues, and hopefully get a permit to, get the permits from them that would allow them to start. Now, the reality
it allows them to start, but it's not clear exactly what. Like, for example, we don't know from Ripple the equivalent information that we have from Gateway, like where the central hub location is going to be. We just don't have exactly the same information. None of the plans I saw from Ripple include that building location, that hut or whatever you want to call it. But presumably they want to build this stuff in an order that allows them to light up customers as rapidly as possible. At least that's what they've said.
Yeah. So one thing to that end, Mike, is that they can tie into the middle mile provider is Open Cape, and Open Cape has 38 miles of 38 miles of fiber on in Falmouth roads, so they can, they meaning Ripple, can tie into Open Cape's fiber lines in any number of locations. They're not
right. So it's probably the case that, I mean, where they're talking about building is also Falmouth Center, and so they're pretty close to that Verizon building, where we know is a point of presence for Open Cape. So,
yeah, the Verizon building is actually the terminus of Open Cape's fiber lines that coming into Falmouth. So if they I just haven't worked that through, and frankly, this is, I haven't gotten into that level of detail with the permitting. But I would say this, that let's assume for a moment that Ripple gets their permits in line with the DPW over the next 2 weeks or so. Perhaps have a meeting to get the final things finalized. And one of the areas that I think is a challenge is how big an area will the Falmouth DPW allow initially. The DPW made it clear in their meetings with all three ISPs that they were not going to issue a blanket permit that covered all of Falmouth. What they wanted were permits in smaller smaller areas that could be managed. In other words, the permit could be issued, and then the ISP could go out and do the work under the permit, and then get it signed off, and they could then request another permit for another area adjacent to it. And so the challenge, and this is part of the feeling, the fact that this is part of the feeling their way process that the DPW is going through. What is an appropriate size area for issuance of a permit to dig underground? Ripple claims they with their horizontal boring techniques or with micro trenching, that they can cover up to 2,000 feet a day underground.
Yeah, that's a lot more than any waterworks oriented underground construction. So,
yeah. So I think are they being optimistic? That's if they're building in East Falmouth, it's probably not optimistic, because East Falmouth is glacial outwash plain, and so it's all sand, and there's it's not like digging over on Sipawissa Road or Woods Hole, where it's you're right on top of a terminal moraine that is got everything from clay to fine sand to boulders the size of the Steamship Authority building, and you never know where those things are going to be under that road, and that's going to present real challenges for anybody doing underground work.
That's probably why they would try and do as much of that area as possible via aerial attachment, right? Because
it seems to me that
so I just wanted
the town of Falmouth doesn't really care if we have fiber internet or not. There's no strategy at the town level except us to say, oh, this is important.
Well, I think if we go back and look at it, without repeating history, the Municipal Light Board and the Municipal Light Plant were created by town meeting 2-3 years ago, but the crux was there was no money appropriated at point in time, and the cost to build a fiber optic network 5 years ago that would cover 100% of the town was in the neighborhood of $50 million, and if it had been financed over 20 years with bonds, the cost would have been closer to 80 million by the time you include the carrying costs. And the town, quite frankly, has got a lot of priorities on its plate besides broadband, and affordable housing, coastal resiliency, and you name it.
A big revenue shortfall to meet them with.
So, and a revenue.
Courtney, I just wanted to draw your attention to the chat. Skip just says he's dropping out of the call because he has a hard stop at 6:30. And I believe we have covered the agenda at this point. Yes?
Yeah.
Or
I think pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
The only thing I would
is other business.
We have other business. And Skip, if you have to drop out, we still have a quorum between Mike and Roger and myself, so we can finish up. All we're going to do is hit other business and then set a date for another meeting, and that's basically it. And what I'll do, Skip, is I've recorded this meeting, and so I'll send you the link, and so if anything you missed, you can sit down at your leisure, and instead of watching the Red Sox, you can put this on and follow.
I appreciate it. Thank you all. Sorry about having to leave. I have a previous appointment, though. Thanks so much.
Take care, Skip.
So, I think one of the challenges right now is that in terms of when these guys are going to start building. Assuming Ripple gets its issues resolved with DPW, and they agree on a scope of work, which is the size of the area that is going to be they're going to issue permits for, because that's an area. And then they got to go to conservation. So they will, I would say, at the earliest they could possibly start would be sometime in the middle of July. That's the reality. That would be the soonest that they could start doing any work underground. Now they're faced with a town or DPW imposed quasi moratorium on underground utility work and town roads in the period between Memorial Day and Labor Day. Now that moratorium is subject to qualification. Certainly they can do fiber installation on side streets, not on busy streets. That's not going to be something that will be subject to moratorium.
I'm not sure how that works, Courtney. I mean, this is not like laying pipe, right? These are fibers, right? So you can't just lay all the little breakouts for the houses and then lay in the long strands, because an awful lot of these long strands go an awful long ways towards the houses.
Right.
Yeah.
It looks like Liz is on.
What's that?
It looks like Liz is on, right?
Yeah.
I am, and I would have my
No,
camera
Liz
on,
is
but
right
it's not
there.
working.
Do you have a question, Liz? I see your microphone's unmuted enough.
I only unmuted it because it was being said that I was here. I've been
Okay.
listening and
Right.
taking some notes.
We should
Okay.
have been mentioned it. We should have mentioned it. But welcome.
But anyway, if you have any questions, when we get through with our presentation, I'll call on you, Liz, and if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them for you. Anyway, back to where we are. So the earliest I think they could realistically start, anybody, is toward the middle or end of July. And my understanding of the moratorium is that if the work is on a side street that isn't going to impact traffic, and they want to work in that area, then that prohibition wouldn't necessarily fall into place. Where the DPW is most concerned about it is on roads, let's say like Gifford Street. If they're installing fiber on Gifford Street and it forces Gifford down to one-way traffic with a flagger, then that most likely would be not allowed. But if, for example, they were installing the fiber along one side of the road, and it wasn't involving running laterals across or anything else, and it only took up 4 feet from the curb, and they could still maintain two-way traffic, then the DPW might allow that. So it's not absolute. So it's a case-by-case situation. So, but as I say, even if Ripple gets their permits okayed by the DPW at this stage, they still got to go through conservation. And so that's why I say I think they'd be lucky to be able to do anything until sometime in the middle or end of July. And now, as far as Gateway is concerned, I am not sure what the status of their pole permitting is.
No, we don't know yet. I haven't seen any make-readies happening, and no one's told us any make-readies are happening yet. So, but actually, we didn't make this point clear earlier, which was the most recent conversations we had with Gateway and the Department of Public Works were not about were about underground installs by Gateway, because they specifically said they were going to start doing underground work. I think because they know that they need to get started because they're in a competitive posture with versus Ripple, right? And so they were not going to wait for the pole make readies to start. And so we, at least that's the last conversation I was involved with them. They were planning to start, and and they were looking at Falmouth Center and Falmouth Heights, which is the same area that Ripple used to be in. So
yeah, Gateway's,
and that was in April, right?
So Gateway's main thrust is they're opting to go to the aerial route. Now that means there are 11,800 poles in the town of Falmouth, but those poles only cover 74% of all the roadways in Falmouth. That means there's 26% is underground, and mostly in private developments. So they're going to have to do some underground work. Ripple's emphasis has always been they want to bypass the bureaucracy and the cost of getting permits to get on the poles by getting permits to go underground. Now it's more expensive per foot on the face of it to go underground than off a pole. On the other hand, the time is money, and the cost for what they call make ready, getting the pole permit, getting the permission to attach to the pole is a drawn out process.
2 years. It's like 2 years is the estimate, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot longer than 2 years right now. But I was going to say, but however, the current work that Gateway is proposing to Conservation Commission and that we expect they are preparing for the DPW is underground construction.
Yeah.
Right? In some sense, they have decided for competitive reasons that despite their emphasis normally being on area, they are going to have to get started underground. And
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's one of those things is, we're in the middle of everything. Stay tuned kind of
right
situation. We are certainly, if you look at it in the perspective that I have, which is going back 6 or more years, we are certainly a hell of a lot further down the road than we were when this process started in 2019. Right. And the fact that we can be sitting here as a body, worrying about the guys getting permits from the DPW for doing underground, to me says we've come a long way. We've got a long way to go, but we've come a long way in the process.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the first shovel to hit the ground.
That's right.
Or the first.
As an aside, do we have any update on Ripple's activity in New Bedford and where that has gone?
I talked to Steve Mayer, who, for the record, was, before he became the government liaison person for Ripple Fiber, was Sue Moran's chief of staff when she was a senator. Anyway, the last time I talked to him, which was probably a month or so ago, they were still trying to sort out some details with their DPW. So they haven't actively started yet. So I'll follow up with him tomorrow and ask him where that stands. I mean, because I'd be interested, because it seemed like it was a logical piece in the puzzle for them in terms of coverage of Southeast Massachusetts, and the scale of their whole investment would make more sense to be able to close this crescent that goes from New Bedford through Mattapoisett and Marion and Wareham and Bourne and into Falmouth. It just economically for them to get fiber into all of those areas would be beneficial. So I'll check with them on that. But anyway, that's where we are. And as I say, Ripple once they get that stormwater issue resolved, they want to have a meeting with the DPW, perhaps the end of this week. Well, the end of this week is tomorrow, so it sounds like next week, to resolve any outstanding issues, and hopefully the permits will be forthcoming. Then they're going to go to Concom and get approval from them, which should not, as I say, at the outside will take a month from the time they submit an application. And that point, then they can start depending on what the DPW will allow in terms of the moratorium. So that's kind of where it is now. Where Gateway exactly fits in terms of the status, I don't know.
Quite as much information about Gateway, but
no.
Okay, so Courtney, should we move on from update on status? And I think we're into other business and the wrap up of our agenda here, right?
Yeah, just one. Since Liz, you're here, I assume you can hear me. Do you have any questions for us that have occurred to you?
No, I'm so impressed. It sounds like this is so very, very complicated with a bunch of, you're juggling a lot of components at the same time, right? The needing permission from Concom and working with the DPW. And I can't believe it takes 2 years to get permission to add onto a pole. I mean,
yeah, it's nuts.
No, it is not. And it moves at glacial speed, Liz. I draw your attention to the down on Main Street, right across from the senior center, or right on Main Street where the entrance out of the senior center and the rec center onto Main Street is. You'll notice there are two sets of poles. They want to put a traffic light in there, but they can't put traffic light in until Verizon, Comcast, and whoever else has communication stuff on the short poles that are sitting in the road and move them over onto the new poles. And that's been like that for a good month.
A good while now.
Yeah. So,
this is one of the few issues I understand that, not a few, but one of the issues that is not something that the town of Falmouth has is part of the delay. It's what it takes, whether it's Verizon or Eversource, in their process and the state process. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it's mostly that section of Route 28 on Main Street. That's a town road. It's not state road like layout. State roads, I believe, starts down by the bank, where Heights Road comes in. I think that's where the state highway resumes.
No, but I just mean the whole make ready process for poles is
it's
not something that is related to DPW or town roads.
It's not related to DPW. It's purely the glacial speed at which Eversource and the other commercial, the other people operate. And I mean, that's what's holding it up. Yeah.
Well, that's right. But then the way to think of it is, of course, that they don't make any money doing this, right? To them, this is just a pain in the ass they're required to do, right?
Well, yeah. And if I remember right, I heard the number that it was something like $11,000 or maybe more than that to relocate one of those poles down there in that location.
Right.
I mean, so it's an expensive process. And so that's probably why the various utilities that are on those poles move at glacial speed.
Mhm.
You
And why
know,
T-Mobile and Comcast are seeking other ways to get this done
well,
wirelessly, I guess.
this is why Ripple has chosen to take the route of going underground,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
because they're saying yes, it's more expensive per foot to go underground, but if they can get customers, if they can go underground, run fiber down Falmouth roads and sign up customers and get an income stream out of it, while the other guy's waiting to get go through this glacial process. Who comes out ahead? Is it so? That's the challenge. Um, oh,
Sorry, Liz, we diverted. Please.
any other questions, Liz, before we
No,
before we
I just really can't say thank you enough for your time and your energy. My husband and I are both excited about the future possibility of having better internet access.
yeah.
Become
Well,
a
and we have
It's a critical part of society. I mean,
It is.
it's
it
now a
is.
necessity.
It's
Yeah.
an important priority. It may not be on the top of the financial priorities that this town has, because there are a lot of there. It's economics 101. That the basic thing is that money is finite and desire is infinite, and
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, but
and
but
that's
I would
that's
say it's an interesting point that if there wasn't private capital offering to do this,
We
right,
couldn't do it.
then it would still be sitting on the town's plate. How the hell are we going to finance this and do it? Because
Right.
it would be an important priority for the town. As soon as private capital shows up and says, we're going to do this or mostly do it without the town having to raise the capital, well, then it comes off the town's priorities, right? And
Right.
that's the challenge, right? Is like, okay,
And in a way, whether it's, I mentioned New Bedford, but whether it's Woods Hole or the businesses along Main Street or Woodwell, they already have fiber optic connections. It's
right.
the townspeople that don't. And that's what
Mhm.
we've been that's what we're focused on
yeah. Well,
because it is the future.
yeah. We'll catch you up a little more, Liz, on the 11th.
Yep.
But Steve, you've been sitting in on this meeting. Do you have any questions?
Well, yeah, I'm still confused about what the role of the MLP is at this stage in the game, and has there been any public announcements by any of these companies that they're moving ahead? I know you were talking about a press release earlier, but is it public knowledge that any of these three are committed to doing anything?
We have given some updates to this, or I gave an update to this select board about I want to say a month ago. Time goes by pretty quick.
In March.
Yeah, and that's been about it, which is one of the reasons why um, we feel it's important to get something out there. As to
Yeah.
our role, I would say um, our role is even though there's no municipal light plant for us to preside over, which in the narrow sense of the law is what is our job. What's happened by default is that we have taken on the responsibility of trying to attract private ISPs to come in and build what the town is unwilling to finance, and so that's been our role. And once we've got some live ones on the hook, and we have two right now, then our job becomes to kind of manage that process through the build in not necessarily manage the process. Maybe a better word is facilitate the process, and simply because as a group we have more intimate knowledge of what's involved with the intricacies of fiber optic cable than probably any other um, particular board and official agency in the town. So I think that justifies our existence. Now, the reality is, Tom, once these things are built out and are up and running, do we fold our tents and say mission accomplished, or do we stay on like in some kind of appendage role like the cable advisory committee or something like that? I don't know. My inclination is once we get this thing built, it's going to be pretty well self-managed. There'll be the MOU provides for a designated point of contact between the town and the town has to designate a point of contact, as does the MOU. I mean, as does the ISP. And so, our role, I think, will become we'll just phase ourselves out of existence. I think it's kind of where we are.
But Tom, in a nutshell, as we redid the mission statement, because the town is not setting up its own broadband service, our role is to ensure that fiber optic broadband services become available to as many households and businesses as possible, and to provide competition to the town's other ISPs. And what that has meant over the last year and a half is that there have been three, now two other ISPs who want to actually spend money to invest. And so our role has been to lay out because it's not exclusive, to lay out the conditions that the town would like to have if such services were implemented. And that's basically what we do.
Yeah. And, it's quite honest, we're feeling our way as we go along, Steve. There's no book, there's no neat little handbook that we get handed when we got elected. As I mentioned, my friend who congratulated me on getting elected wanted to know what we did, and so I think that's there is. So we're trying to design our role, since we don't have a municipal light board to manage, and I think the role we're gradually settling into, which is a facilitator and a coordinator and so on, is the appropriate role for us at this point.
So
anyway,
it sounds like you're essentially a group of volunteers, elected volunteers, who are not to take away from what you're doing, but to try and come up with a clear picture of what you're doing. You're the designated cheerleaders, but the town hasn't given you any real authority or budget.
Now, they certainly haven't given us a budget, nor have we actually pressed the town for a line item budget. I at times have thinks we should, even if it's only like $10,000 or a year or something, to cover things like the cost of maintaining a website, or if we have to do mailings, who covers that? So you're right. I mean,
it's true that we're a big part of our role, I think, Steve, is promotional at this point, right? I mean, I view our job as, we're not going to have a municipal light plant. How are we going to achieve the same thing, but by coordinating and promoting private interests who are doing it? Right.
Yeah.
And a big
I think that's important. I mean, some of you know me. I mean, I have been a proponent for competition in the marketplace for many years now. I just, to tell you the truth, because everything is so vague, I think it's good that you're paying attention. On the other hand, I think it's discouraging to know that everything is just kind of hanging out there. I mean, if the companies are not excited enough to be announcing the fact that they're building in our neighborhood, it's kind of an odd way to enter a market. So I'm just
Well,
concerned that nothing is going to happen.
well, I'm not sure I share your concern. I think it's going to be very important for both of these ISPs. Once they put shovels in the ground and their expense meter starts to run, they're going to want to promote. And I think our job in once that happens is to help facilitate that, just like we're talking about with the press release. Um, uh, we should be that should be a part of our role is to help to build public awareness that these guys are doing it, to assist them in their marketing. I mean, it isn't just their marketing isn't going to be just putting door hangers on houses they go by saying there's $50 and sign up now for $50 for gig service, or $100 for 2 gig, or whatever their thing is. We want to help them build awareness in the town, so that the brand name Ripple Fiber or Gateway Fiber is something that people recognize. That's going to help them sell their service. So, I mean, one obvious way for them to do this is by sponsorship of various activities. I think things like the Falmouth Walk or things like that. I mean, there are a million sponsorship opportunities in this town that, and it's, I think part of our job is to help them promote themselves and maybe, put them in touch with people that can really help them promote. It's
Okay. One last question. You mentioned the MOUs at the beginning of the meeting. What does
yeah,
the MOU accomplish?
it's simply
Well, I
it
have
is it's basically a document which lays out the responsibilities of the internet service provider, what and the town. It kind of acts as a guide for the relationships between the two.
I'll give you a quick summary, Tom, of the main points that are in the MOU. One is it tries to establish efficient cooperation between the ISP and the town for coordinated communication. Next, it talks about promotional responsibilities. We were just talking about promotional considerations. They in signing the MOU, they're agreeing to having monthly ongoing reviews of their build plans with the MLB. And it asks them to define a distance-based, per foot and per terrain type install cost schedule for otherwise unserved homes. So this is the idea being that the goal was that if they're going to say we don't want to serve this location, that they should have to provide a number why. And if somebody's willing to pay, they should be able to get service, right? And then the last point is it asks them to work in conjunction with digital equity programs to tie into their customer support into town digital navigator program, for example.
Which is already there's already a grant that's been awarded to FCTV for digital equity, so they would they would coordinate with that and perhaps offer a reduced package cost to homes that qualified, that kind of stuff. So, to the extent that we can get them to agree to non-economic but more social goals, which would have been what a town-operated network would have done. Yes, a town-operated network certainly would have had, while it would be out to make a profit, it would also would have had as part of its mission to ensure that every person, regardless of their economic status, had access to broadband. And, that's a lever. When you don't put any money in, you don't have any say. And so part of what we tried to do is to squeeze the ISPs in these memorandums of understanding to buy into some of those social goals. I'd say we did all right, as good as being expected when you don't have the leverage of money, So
Yeah, they have both agreed to that and actually are very
Yeah.
supportive of it. And
Yeah.
one of them, I guess, has a press release ready. So we're just waiting for shovels to hit the ground.
Yeah.
yeah,
And I will say also, Steve, to your the other goal, at least not goal or maybe mission, is I get all sorts of when is this going to happen from especially friends in East Falmouth? When is the internet going to get better? And so just trying to say that we are doing something to get that happening and to get these two vendors to service the community that is not serviced today. That is also, as Courtney said, part of our goal.
So so I just was reaching into
We have
one of the,
to, we have to
yeah,
close this meeting out.
yeah.
I
Just
have
what
to
I
jump.
wanted to follow up on. There's a whole section on support for digital equity
Yeah,
that they're agreeing to. There's also a whole section regarding support for Falmouth Community Television,
right.
which I think is extraordinarily important as far as this town is concerned, particularly as it relates to town government broadcasting stuff. So, I think we've done as well as we could with that MOU in terms of.
But Steve, you've also just given me a hint as to what I need to do for this press release that we've agreed to write up.
Yeah. Well, if you want, I sent you those MOUs. You can pull some stuff out of that, Roger. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we've covered. Is there any other questions on that? If not, let's move forward. We have other business. Is there any other business to be discussed?
I have no other business.
Actually not.
Okay. When do we want to meet next? Well, I would think maybe a couple of weeks would be good. That would put us just before.
When do we expect action from the ISPs, I guess? Yeah, 2 weeks would be good.
Yeah,
2 weeks at least then to get the press release finalized.
Yeah. Why don't we tentatively look for 2 weeks? Anybody got a calendar? What is 2 weeks from? Hold on, bear with me.
It's 4 and 7. It's the 18th.
Is it? Yeah, June 18th. Do we want to wait until say the 25th? That's
Yes.
3 weeks off.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think the 25th.
All right. Why don't we plan on a meeting Thursday the 25th via Zoom at 5:30, and we'll stick that in the minutes, and then we'll go from there. And at that point, we'll try to one of the agenda items will be to finalize this press release. So if you can have something drafted up by then, Roger, that would be good.
All right. Very good.
And I mean, if you want, you can certainly run it past Mike and I before then. If you've got
we're going to do this in concert with each
Yeah.
other. So yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you start with a draft and run it by us, and hopefully by 3 weeks from now, we'll have it in good enough shape to,
great.
Okay.
put out there, and
So-
all of a sudden, everybody will know what we're all about. Okay. So the final order of business is adjournment. So I need a
Okay.
motion,
I moved that we adjourn.
and we have a second. Roger?
Roger seconds.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Mike,
Beckerly, aye.
Roger,
McDonald, aye.
and Bird, aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Liz, for coming.
I'll see you next week, Court.
Yeah, and I appreciate your sitting in. Did you learn anything?
I definitely did. And now I'm off to put a 9-year-old to bed.
All
All right, very good.
Good
Take
night.
care.
Thank you.
Okay,
Take care.
that's good. All
Goodbye,
right,
all.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.